After Spain, we took a bus to Portugal and we were going to stay for a night in Faro. Faro is a city that is right on the border between Spain and Portugal. So we were going to stay for one night before we made our way to Lisbon. Faro is an old Portuguese city. It's a coastal city, and it also has an old part of the city that has cobble streets, cathedral. So we took a tourist bus and we had a quick tour of the old city during our brief time there. We took a train from Faro to Lisbon and it was a 3 hours journey. Lisbon is the coastal capital city of Portugal. It's a very beautiful, colorful city. It's famous for its colorful buildings, and the city is built on a mountain as well. So you have uphill and downhill landscape. Lisbon is famous for its trams and funiculars. Funiculars are basically used by the residents to go uphill, and we rode one just for the experience of it, and we enjoyed it a lot. Portugal is famous for its explorers because it's right next to the coast. They had a lot of sea explorers like Vasco da Gama. We visited Belém Tower in Lisbon, which was the embarkation and disembarkation point for these Portuguese explorers. Next to Belém Tower is this monument, which is basically built to commemorate Portuguese explorers and visionaries in the 15th and 16th century, who established Portugal as the most powerful seafaring nation of the era. After Belém Tower, we also visited Geronimo's Monastery, which is just 10 minutes walk from Belém Tower, and it is also the resting place of Vasco da Gama. The monastery is a World Heritage Site and it's a very famous tourist destination. It has an interesting Gothic kind of architecture as well. And we took a walk around the monastery, we went inside, and we enjoyed the architecture inside and out. We really wanted to ride a tram in Lisbon, so we went to get some information from one of the tourist booths in Lisbon, and they told us about tram number 28, which is famous with tourists because its route includes all the main touristy spots, and it takes you around and you can see everything. I booked a tour through Viator for Sintra and Cascais. So the next day we were picked up from Lisbon city center and we were on our way to Sintra first and then Cascais. Once we were in Sintra, we went to the Pina Palace, which is famous because it's on top of a mountain and it can be seen from a distance. It has vibrant, beautiful colors like yellow, red, blue, and each chamber has its own color, and its color represents something, represents how that chamber is used. We visited the inside of the palace as well. We saw the rooms, the furniture inside, how people used to live in those days. After visiting the palace, we had some time in Sintra town, so we explored the town and we loved it. After Sintra, we stopped at Cape Roca, which is the westernmost point of Europe, and you can see Atlantic Ocean from there. Cascais is a resort coastal town in Portugal. It's famous for its sandy beaches. So once we were there, we had a lot of time. We had lunch. We just walked around, explored the city. After Lisbon, we were on our way to Porto, and it took us around 3 hours from Lisbon to Porto as well. Porto is in the north of Portugal. It's also a coastal city and it's famous for its cobble streets, wine production, lots of beautiful bridges, and it has its own unique architecture. In Lisbon and Porto, we also had their famous dessert, pastel de nata, which is a pastry dessert with custard in it. It is absolutely delicious. We had a lot of it, and it can easily be found everywhere. We spent our day exploring Porto on foot. We walked around. It's also a hilly city. It has uphill and downhill slopes. It also has trams, but not as many as in Lisbon. This part of Porto, which is next to the river, was our favorite. We spent many hours sitting there, just enjoying the calm, the peace, enjoying lots of stalls next to the river, lots of performances happening around. This market was right in the middle of Porto City and it was a food market. It has a variety of food. It has juices, different kinds of cheese, seafood, desserts. We tried their juice twice and it was very fresh.
The other side. Vlog one.
We also did a day trip from Porto to Braga. Braga is, I think, the second largest city in north of Portugal, and it's a very historic city with religious significance. And we enjoyed the architecture there. The architecture is very old, very beautiful, very traditional. We went to Praga on a Sunday and we were surprised to see that there weren't many people around. Almost all of the shops were closed as well. And we could not find a place to eat. And there was just one cafe that opened, and we had to have our lunch there. Later on, we were told that in Portugal, Sunday
Yeah.
is a family day where everyone spends time with their families, and most of the businesses are closed, and there aren't many people out on the streets as well. After spending a day in Braga, we took a train and came back to Porto around in the evening time. It was a great day, a bit cloudy, but a great day. We saw some street performances and had lunch there as well. The next day, we were going to Giris National
Oh
Park.
God.
Giris National Park is located in the northwestern part of Portugal. It is the only national park in Portugal, and it is it has rugged hills, it's very green, lots of trees. It also has deers, wolves, eagles, and there are lots of villages in that national park as well. We visited one of the tiny villages in Giris National Park and we saw how the people lived there. It was one of the best experiences of our trips because we learned a lot and we saw how differently they live and grow their own crops and they have their own cows. It was very quiet in the village, and we couldn't see many people around because it was raining and it was winter time as well. So, our tour guide told us that during winters they mostly stay inside. And but we did see a lady walking around, and she was concerned about us because we were walking in rain and these villages were very interesting to see because the people were very independent. They grew their own crops, they had their own animals, they had their own water system as well. There was a van that came once a week with groceries. So they lived a very simple life, and I enjoyed experiencing that and exploring that. We went on a few hikes around the village in Giris National Park and saw a few waterfalls. Although it was raining, it was wet as well,
A
but we
what day,
still
sorry?
enjoyed it. We couldn't, the
Oh.
views weren't clear enough because of the
Yeah.
fog around, but it was still a very enjoyable experience.
To the
I
ecosystem.
also
They're
booked
on
a
top of the
tour
food chain, so they keep
for
everything
Giris
in
National
balance.
Park through
If you take out the
Viator,
wolves,
and
like the
our tour guide
populations,
was
like some
very
populations, like
friendly,
the boar
very kind,
population.
very informative. She knew the locals, she knew people in the village, and she gave us a lot of information about that national park as well. It was very surprising for us to see cows just walking around on their own without any caretaker or any guide. And so our tour guide told us that the cows are very familiar with the village, with the directions around the village, so they usually do walk around on their own. During our last hike, we sat down next to a waterfall. We had some warm cup of tea, and we finally started driving back to Porto.